Welcome to the Dumb Saints podcast. I'm Alex.
PJ.
And we have a very special guest this week. I mean, this guy is one of the most interesting men. What's the brand?
Oh,
the commercials?
Dos Equis?
Yes,
He's
the world's most.
inspiration
Yes.
behind the Dos Equis.
Okay,
that's funny.
Our guest this week is Jack Harris.
Yeah.
And I said on stage when I introduced you when you spoke at First Wednesday at our church, where I said, he's known by many names, and then I didn't say any of the names.
Do you have some of those?
Well, I know Wolfman Jack.
Oh, that's a good one.
So
Yeah.
you've done lots of ministry with biker gangs, and you've been kicked out of India for too many conversions. You have
Kicked out of Vietnam.
I mean, sometimes I'm talking about a preacher said something, and you're like, "Oh yeah, we had lunch last week," and I'm like, "How? What?" You're like, you have so many connections, and you have so many great stories. And so when we talked, like, "Hey, what should we ask Jack about?" We're like, "I don't even know. I think maybe we should just talk to him, and you'll automatically share some stories." But I know that PJ had planned some questions in regards to really missions, because that's your heart. That's
it.
your bread and butter. So I think it might be good to just kind of introduce yourself.
God loves missions so much.
Yeah.
The first two letters of his name are go.
God.
Go.
Yes. Yes. And you have dedicated your entire life to missions.
Yeah.
And I know that you founded an organization that plants wells around the world. And so just tell us some about like your background and why you joined missions and kind of what you guys are doing right now.
So I'm a preacher's kid, a Pentecostal preacher's kid. So we didn't have coffee in our house right now. PJ and I are drinking coffee because it had caffeine in it, so we couldn't drink that. It was
You
a
couldn't
drug.
even drink caffeine?
No.
Dude, I grew up in.
They were real
I
Pentecostals.
mean, my parents still were. Once I got this tattoo that says "God is able," my grandma didn't talk to me for a month.
Yeah.
Even though it said God is able.
Yes.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, I got one that's the map of the world.
That's awesome.
On the top it says, "Go into all the world," and on the bottom it says, "Here am I, send me."
That's
dope.
cool.
Yeah, so anyhow, I grew up in this Pentecostal house, and everything was a sin, everything was wrong. And I basically hated the ministry. I didn't hate church because I had lots of friends there, but I hated the ministry. And when my wife and I started dating, we were 15, and I told her I'll never be in the ministry.
Wow.
And we got married when we were 18. I was in the Army. We went to Germany by the time we were 21. We owned some rental properties. We managed an apartment complex. I was 50% owner of a plumbing company, and my wife worked a full-time job, and we were just going to make a lot of money.
You were doing well.
Yeah, we're gonna make a lot of money.
Wow.
And then I just started thinking. I drove a lot, doing service calls, and I just started thinking, what am I doing with my life that matters?
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't know anything about what we're going to talk about, but I put it on my Facebook page, I think this morning or last night, that a lot of times when I go to bed at night, I ask myself this question: what did I do today that made a difference?
Man.
And there's just too many empty days like that, So I told Sherry at some point, look, we have to go into the ministry if we're going to do anything with our lives that's going to matter. And look, there's nothing wrong at all with being a plumber or anything like that.
Right.
Everybody has to work. In the book, I think 1 Thessalonians, it says, a man that doesn't work doesn't eat.
Yep.
So if you see a guy that's hungry, you know the problem.
He's not
He ain't working.
Yeah.
And
I
so-
mean, even Paul was making tents, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
So they had their different trades and stuff.
Yeah.
That's an admirable thing.
I know.
Jesus had splinters in his hands. In books, we don't get those stories.
Yeah.
But he was carpenter, dude. He
PJ
was
likes
working.
to add into the Bible.
was a
sometimes.
carpenter.
He does.
Dude, there's so much.
According to the book of PJ.
There's so
yeah,
much.
This
Dude, if
is
Jesus never
PJ
got a
5,
splinter,
verse 1.
if Jesus never got a splinter, then he got a
I
splinter.
know. So anyhow, I said we have to go in the ministry. Well, all the preachers we knew pastored Pentecostal churches with, if they had 100 people, it was considered a strong, big church, And Sherry actually went to a Pentecostal Church of God church that was 700 or 800. It was the largest one in the organization out of about 2,500 churches. Wow. And so I started going there after I met her the first time because, if you want to have contact with a train, just go stand on the tracks.
Yeah.
If you want to have contact with a girl, just go to church with her.
Yeah.
There you go.
So I started going to
That's
church
free game
there.
right there.
Yeah, I know.
That's free game.
And I started going to church there, but everything was small. I never met a missionary. I didn't hardly even know. I think most people watching this podcast, they can't define the word missionary.
No, they think it's that missions trip that they did in youth group.
Yeah.
Where they go for like 5 days and they feel good about themselves at the end of it.
Like, I got to use the Spanish I learned.
Yeah. Like,
Actually, that's thinking higher than most people do.
so you're saying it's even worse.
We've really messed missions up in the church in the USA, because anything that we do that you have to raise money for, that's not easy to raise money for, the church for decades has said, well, let's call it missions, and people will give to missions.
True.
So everything is a mission. If you help the homeless, that's a mission. It is a mission, but it's not the biblical missions. The word for missions in the Bible is mitto. M-I-T-T-O. It's a Greek word, and it means one who's sent out. And so it's about out there, not about in here.
Yeah.
That's so
And
true.
so we've really ruined that word. And so, like, when I tell people I'm a missionary, you'd be shocked how many people just look at me with a blank look. Like, what does that
What
mean?
is that?
And I'm talking about in the church, not in the grocery
Wow,
store.
that's crazy.
So anyhow, we were just going to be pastors, and we sold our properties. I sold my business, and we bought a little travel trailer and a 65 GMC pickup truck. Wow. And started traveling and preaching, which everybody we knew, that's how they started.
Yeah.
Within about a year, they go pastor a church somewhere, which we did too. We went to pastor a little church in Springfield, Missouri. And I just kept asking myself, is this what God really wanted me to do? And did I give up everything that we had going and growing to do this?
Yeah.
And it wasn't true. And when we got married, 10 days after we married, I was in the military and I was being stationed in Germany. So 10 days after we got married, I left for Germany. A few weeks later, she came and joined me. We were living in Germany. And I remember it would always come up in my thoughts, when we lived in Germany, we had to drive 30 miles to go to a church that was a good church, actually. But if we wanted to go to a church that believed in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, a Trinity church, we had to drive 50 miles. And I wasn't a Christian. I was crazy, doing drugs and all kinds of stuff. But I took her to church every Sunday.
Wow.
Man.
And I just kept thinking,
man.
I started saying, sure, yeah, I tell you, I was wild as could be, did all kinds of crazy stuff, but I knew the whole time I had to marry a godly woman.
That's good.
And so that was always my goal. But anyhow, I said, Sherry, let's just move to Germany. We'll do a church near some military installations. We'll have Americans come there. We'll reach Germans, and we'll just pastor there. There's 1 million pastors in the U.S.
Yeah.
And, this is a true statistic. 95% of the ordained ministers in the world live and minister in the United States.
Oh,
Wow.
we're
And the United
oversaturated.
States only has
my
5% of the world's population. So we got 95 ministering to 5. And the rest of the world is just out there. So when Jesus said, go on all the world, preach the gospel to every nation, that word nation right there means specific ethnic groups.
Okay.
And if you go to Operation World and a couple other places, you can find out that there are around 17,000 distinct cultural people groups in the world. And right now, I might tell you a killer story in a minute.
Okay, good.
But right now,
forget.
about 7,000 of those people groups have never heard the name of Jesus. Isn't that crazy, PJ?
It's absolutely crazy, yet absolutely my belief is, we have a lot of people on TikTok, Instagram, and hopefully through this conversation, there is someone, because there probably wasn't for you. You didn't know a missionary. You didn't know it.
Right.
But that question, you said something, and me and Alex, I've been telling Alex this thing for a while. It's like, man, I come from a heritage of church, my grandparents, my parents. But at some point, it's like, what have you done for the kingdom now? And me and Alex, more and me, have been talking about this idea of like, hey, what you did for the kingdom, cool, then is awesome. But what have you done today? And I think it's cool that you had a moment, that I definitely had a moment, because I was outdoor knocking, roofing. I was a roofing manager and doing sales. And I literally had that same, like, the most money I've ever made in my life. Everything's set, company car. And I'm like, this doesn't matter. And I remember calling Pastor Ken. And I'm like in the Villages, Florida, about 2 hours away. And it's just this idea of like, man, I want to, the next 30 years of my life, because I was 30, I want to really do something that matters. So I'm just looking forward to the idea that someone may hear something and go, oh.
Which we're not saying.
No, we're
if
not.
you work in a factory, an office, if you have a business, we're not saying that that's nothing. That is great.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all for that.
Yeah.
And I have a problem with people that don't work.
Yeah.
But what we're saying is sometimes some people have a higher calling.
Yes.
And if you don't rise up to that higher calling, then you're failing in life.
Man, you're missing out.
But
So-
we have turned missions into like this. We've Americanized it. Like you don't have to be a part of it. Just pay us, and that's good enough.
Right.
And that's where you get all these pastors raising all this money, but 95% of them are here and only 5% are there.
Yeah.
And I also think that we fall into this mentality that like we think everybody knows about Jesus. Like you just said that all those ethnicities haven't heard of Jesus before, and I'm like, how? How have they not?
I'm going to tell
found
you
out
how,
already?
Alex.
Yeah.
So I went to Borneo a couple times to preach. Borneo's an island. It's part of it's controlled by Indonesia, part by Malaysia, and part of it is I'll think of the name of the kingdom in a minute, but it's a little kingdom, very wealthy in oil. And so I went there. In order to get there from the U.S., you'd have to fly from the United States to Japan to Singapore to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia.
Wow.
Then you catch a flight from Kuala Lumpur and fly from Kuala Lumpur to Borneo. Then I got in a big boat that was designed to look like an airplane fuselage.
That's
And
cool.
it had two big 12-cylinder Cummins diesel engines in it. And it went about 50 miles an hour up this river.
Wow.
And it went through some of the best whitewater rafting areas in the world, but it just went right over the top of that whitewater stuff.
Wow.
So we get there, we go to a little town, and we stay there. And the next day, I get in a boat, 31 feet long. I measured it, had a 15 horsepower Yamaha engine on it, a guy on the back of it, a guy on the front of it. The guy in the front of it would either stand or squat with his hand like this the whole time.
Wow.
And when there was an alligator or really shallow water, he would drop his hand. The guy would stop the boat, and a lot of times we had to get out of the boat,
Oh, man.
pick the boat up, and they ran through the shallow
There
water
had to have been
gravel to the other
anacondas.
side. Look, it was brutal physically, and we were just sitting on a flat. It was like something like a dugout canoe, you know.
Yeah.
And so we go upriver for 8 hours. So I mean, we've really traveled for days to get to this moment.
Yeah.
And they tell me you're going to be the first white guy to go there, the first American to go there,
Whoa.
the first English speaker to go there. You're going to be the first person to go there and preach the gospel.
Whoa.
So I was pretty pumped about it, you know.
Yeah.
And picking the boat up and running with it was brutal.
Yeah.
And we get to this, you know, as you're going up this river, it keeps getting narrower and narrower, and we go by villages. There are no roads. The only way in or out of these places is walk the mountain trails or go up this river to get there.
Wow.
And so we get to the final place. You know, we've been stopping and buying fruit for little people selling stuff, you know, and whatever. We finally get there, and when we pull up, there was a lady on the riverbank, and she had a makeshift stand made where she was selling something, but the boards weren't cut even or anything. It was just jagged pieces of wood stuck together. You know, I thought, what is this lady selling in this extremely remote village in Borneo, Indonesia? So I walked over there. You know what she was selling? Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola.
What?
Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, how did Coca-Cola beat the gospel to this village?
Yeah.
I was really upset
All
about
the
it.
traveling every way.
How did
Someone has carried a 12-pack, a 48-pack of Coca-Cola.
Oh my God.
Do you know that all Coca-Cola syrup is made in Atlanta, Georgia?
I didn't
Only
know that.
5 people know the recipe for it. The recipe's kept in a bank vault.
I believe it.
Yeah. And
I
so,
was waiting for him to be like, I'm one of those
Yeah.
5.
no,
He
I'm
might
not.
be.
But
He
look,
knows one of the 5.
look, I started doing some research about it.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I was really ticked off. I stayed there a couple of days, and it's called a longhouse. It's a like a cabin type thing they build out of bamboo and palm leaves.
Yeah.
And it's wide enough for 150 people or 150 families to live in this one. It's all broke up into little
Oh, wow.
compartments,
Yeah.
and it has a bamboo like a deck or porch in front of it.
Yeah.
And one of the things they do is they raise pepper, and they pick the pepper and put it out there in the sun to dry.
Really?
Yeah. And they are headhunters and they are cannibals. And so, like, one day, this is kind of funny. My brother-in-law was with
I
me.
like how you just dropped that
Yeah,
right at
Cannibals,
the end of the
this
story.
is funny. Like, he's about to go into a
Cannibals
story.
love Coca-Cola, apparently.
Yeah. So, no, I never thought of that. Hey, man, that tongue was gross. Let me have a little Coca-Cola.
Yeah, let me
That
watch
tongue
it down.
was gross.
So they had a a way they would put a pipe in water upstream from where their longhouse was,
Yeah.
and it would just catch that water and run it through a conduit
Just like
down
gravity
to the
would
house.
pull it
Right,
down.
exactly. So the longhouse was about 150 feet from the edge of the river, and about halfway down there was just a spigot. Not really a shower head, just a PVC pipe, and you could go
Just
stand down there and take a shower.
Wow.
So extremely hot,
Very remote.
extremely hot.
Jack, that's so cool because what you're talking about is one of the questions that you're kind of going into. But something that I am curious about is what has the global church taught you? So, Bornea, you're taking the gospel there. The people are there. You are the church. You are going there. But what has the global church taught you that American Christians need to relearn? Like, what is
commitment? Commitment. Let me finish this story though.
Yeah.
So I'm there. That night, I'm speaking to people, and I'm sitting on one of two chairs in the whole longhouse with 150 families in it. They sit on the floor normally. The chief is sitting on this side of me. He's got tattoos everywhere, the kind where they hammer. It's called a hammer tattoo.
I want one of those.
And I want one too. I should have got one while I was there. Anyhow, I've been told that anytime they take a head, they put a dot tattoo on their knuckle. And this guy had knuckles dots everywhere.
Whoa.
He was old guy, and his wife is sitting on the floor next to me. So just imagine I'm sitting here and she's right here.
Yeah.
So pretty soon she leans over. She puts her arm up on my leg. And I'm looking at her. The translator's on the other side. I'm looking at her, looking at the chief, looking at her, looking at the chief. All of a sudden she starts scratching my leg. And I said to the translator, "Hey, dude, the chief's wife is scratching my leg. Am I in danger?" He goes, "What?" I said, all these people are standing around listening to us. What? I said, "Yeah, the chief's wife, man, she's laid over on me. She's scratching my leg. Am I in danger?" He goes, "Oh my God, Jack, among the Iban people, scratching is the highest form of affection. You're in. You're in. You're in."
Dude, I knew when I told my wife to ask to scratch my back. I've always
cultural.
known that.
It's cultural. So anyhow, I did some research. And so back in the 30s, Coca-Cola was in competition with Pepsi. And they had a meeting of their board of directors, and they said, how can we become the number one soft drink maker in the world?
In the world.
So they came up with a couple of things that they had to do. If they wanted to be the number one in the world, they had to put their best people in the international department.
Right.
If they wanted to be number one in the world, they had to have the best distribution system in the world. And number three, if they wanted to be number one in the world, they would have to risk the future of the company by investing so much money into the international department. Yeah. So that's what they did.
Yeah.
And there's tankers that crisscross the ocean full of Coke syrup.
Yeah.
And they have the world's best distribution. They put their best people, they called people in from other nations and said, you're going to be in this international department and you're going to help us reach the world.
Right.
And so they put the money in it, okay? So I started figuring that out, and I started thinking, man, this is crazy. You can't believe how many times in the last 45 years I've been a missionary, I go to a pastor and say, hey, man, I saw this couple in your church. They're really sharp. They're really great. I think they would make great missionaries. Will you let me recruit them? And you know what the pastor would say? What? That's one of the best families in my church. I can't lose them. And you know what I say to that? It took me a while to figure it out. But I just look at the pastor and say, so you're saying if I ask for the worst couple in your church, I could recruit them, but I can't have the best. That's what Coca-Cola did. They did the best. Yeah. So look, the first time I used to preach a message called The Gospel According to Coca-Cola. And
I love it.
The first time I spoke, it was in Clinton, Louisiana, in a small town. And it's a church I've been part of for years and years. When I got through speaking, this guy came up to speak with me, and he was dressed in a very fine tailor-made suit. I noticed as soon as he walked up, this guy's got it going on.
Yeah.
And he said, son, I want to know how the heck you know that story.
Wow.
I said, well, I read Reader's Digest. He started laughing, but you can learn a lot from Reader's Digest. Yeah. And so I said, no, I just did some research on it. He goes, well, look, I'm going to tell you, your story is spot on. I said, it is? He said, yeah, I'd never been to this church before, but I just retired from Coca-Cola and I was a vice president in the international department. We need to get you to come to Atlanta and tell our story.
Wow.
And so how did that happen? The church didn't make the right commitments. We didn't obey the commandments of Jesus. Yeah. We don't put our money there. And we've not yet reached the world that Coca-Cola's reached over and over.
Like Coca-Cola cared more about their goal of being the number one drink in the world than we as Christians care about making sure people know about Jesus. And
Isn't that crazy?
That's pretty depressing. Like,
It's crazy, man.
That's sad.
Yeah, I know.
What happened at that village?
Oh,
I mean, you shared Jesus?
Lots of people got saved.
That's amazing.
I never went back there. When you do what I do, Paul said some sow, some plant, some receive the harvest. And so I'm a sower, and I don't often get to see but I have started a couple hundred churches, from great meetings or something.
Yeah.
But that was just a place I couldn't figure out a way to get back in there.
Wow.
But I have heard that it's become a Christian village.
That's
so
amazing.
You can go there now, Alex. It's safe. They won't take your head.
That's good. And they're still drinking Coke.
They probably are still drinking.
Dude, I'm bringing root beer.
That's That's so crazy. And that's such a powerful story to show how we've really missed it.
Yeah.
How we've really missed it.
So I tell my wife, hey, let's just move to Germany. We'll learn to speak German. We'll reach people there.
Yeah.
And, one of the reasons was I hate the politics of the church.
Yeah.
And I even am hesitant to talk about it publicly like this, but there's so much politics in the church. If you know the right person, if you kiss up to the right person, if you do things a certain way, then you get the money.
Right.
Actually, a great, great pastor out of Toronto, Canada, his name was Oswald J. Smith, and he said the greatest thief in the world is a pastor with no missionary vision.
Wow.
And
because they're just keeping
this
it all.
money's
They're just
coming in.
hoarding it all.
Yeah, churches are needy organizations.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Every church is needy. Whether it's a church plant or a 40-year-old church, they need a new sound system. They need lighting. They need parking. They need the parking lot paved. They need the parking lot striped.
Yeah.
They need more equipment for the children's ministry.
Yeah.
They need. So when a missionary goes to a pastor and asks for help, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Because the pastor is just trying to keep everything, all the balls in the air with what he's doing, and try and add another major commitment onto that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But, thank God there are a lot of missionaries in the world preaching the gospel.
Yeah.
And Sherry and I have been missionaries for 45 years. We lived in India, lived in Malaysia. Last year I had someone go through all of my passports since 1982 and make a list of where I was and when. I've been to India 89 or 90 times, been to Vietnam 19 times, Brazil 35 times.
Wow.
Lots of places.
And the question that you asked was similar to this Coke thing. If it fits in, because
he answered it through the story.
Because the idea is, well, what have you learned from the global church that you haven't, that the American church needs to relearn? The word you said was commitment. And I immediately thought about like a lady who has to walk, like 3 hours to get to the pole barn church so that she can worship God with other people in her community. And if we can't find a parking spot, we'll just leave and come back next Sunday.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. I had a pastor from Springfield, Missouri, come to India with me one time. I was doing a crusade in a city where I did my first church plant in Udamalpet, and I was staying about 40 miles away at the closest decent hotel, not a very Hindu hotel, very simple, but at least it was clean.
Yeah.
It's so funny how in America I'm like, that must be like a La Quinta or like a Super 8. And it's probably like, that's way nicer.
No, it was the Sri Lakshmi, which Lakshmi is one of the Hindu goddesses. So anyway, we would drive every day and we would go there. And for the services at night, we had a big crusade, maybe 15, 25,000 people.
Wow.
But in the mornings, I would take him out to villages and stuff, So we went to a village one day where we got up early, drove to this village as close as we could drive, parked, walked a couple miles into this village.
Yeah.
And we walked through several other villages on the way there. But we get to this village, and we're feeding people sandwiches that we brought with us. And I'm sitting there talking to them and preaching to them. And the pastor goes, Jack. Just had a thought too. That guy's name is Pastor David. I won't say his last name. And he still supports our ministry today. And this was back in like 85, 86, 87.
That's so cool.
Anyhow, he said, Jack, see that guy right there? And I said, yep. He goes, that guy was at the crusade yesterday. I said, I don't think so, David. No. He was there. I recognize him. I said, David, I don't know how that guy could get from this village to the crusade.
It's pretty far away.
And so I got the translator and I said, hey, let's talk to this guy for a minute. And I said, have you been coming to the crusade? Yep. How do you get to the crusade? Well, I have to walk from here 2 or 3 miles to the closest village where a bus comes through once or twice a day. And I get on a bus, and village buses are short buses because long buses have a big turn radius and they can't weave and go through everything. So I get on the short bus, and then I ride it to this town, which is like 20 or 30 miles away, and I get on a city bus, and it takes me 3 city buses to get there. And so I said, so when do you leave here to go to the crusade at night? He said, oh, I have to leave early in the morning. And he said, so I said, so you come back every night? No, I come back every other night because the buses don't run when you get off the highway, no buses. So when I come back at night, I have to walk about 15 or 20 miles. So look, this pastor, he was upset.
Yeah.
He said, I am so angry. I said, why? He said, I can't wait to get back to my church.
Yeah.
I said, why? He said, I have people that won't come to church if they can't get the right parking spot, if they can't sit in the right seat, if it's too hot, if it's too cold, if the sun's not shining. And this guy is walking 20 miles in the middle of the night to come to a crusade.
For real.
Yeah, we're just so spoiled in America in general, and in the church specifically, and it shouldn't be that way. We have major entitlement problems here.
So much.
Yeah, it's like a consumer mindset where, like we have people will visit our church and they're like, yeah, we're looking for a church right now. We're maybe like the 6th church that they've visited.
Yeah.
And like other people don't have that luxury. And you were talking about like not having a parking spot, or it's too hot, or it's too cold, or they don't like the style of music. That's one that we get a lot. Or maybe, well, the preacher, he's just not as lively as our preacher back at our other church. And like, there's all these things. So we get to pick which one we want. Like we pick a car, or like we pick a phone. Like we get to pick which one we want that best suits our preferences
for that season.
And I think that is, and exactly, because in 3 years, you're going to get mad at that church and probably go somewhere else.
And the problem is when somebody gets upset and leaves one church and goes to another church, there's problems at that church too. The problem is
It's you.
them.
Yes. Yeah, Pastor Ken always says, you leave with a fever, you're just going to take that somewhere else. And you're going to take the fever to them, and they're going to get sick.
It's totally true. Yeah, so we're so spoiled.
Yeah.
And we want everything our way, which, this doesn't happen anymore. Like I'm here in Claremont with you guys with Discover Life Church, and they have me staying in a nice hotel. Actually, I really like it. It doesn't say this in every hotel anymore, but it used to. Every hotel when you went to, by the front desk, there would be a sign that would say, attend the church of your choice this Sunday.
Wow.
Which is totally wrong. You don't attend the church of your choice. You attend the church of his choice.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we think we have the right to choose what church. I helped plant a church in St. Louis 45 years ago. And the church became a large church, and it's a lot of famous preachers have come out of it. It's a well-known church. And I've been going to church there for 45 years.
Wow.
But I preach in churches all around the St. Louis area that work with Global Messenger Service. And people come up to me and go, hey, Jack, how you doing? Doing great. How you do? Haven't seen you for a while. Yeah, well, I said, where you go to church at? Oh, I went to this church for a while. Then I went to this church. And they always make the mistake of looking at me and saying, so what church do you go to? I go to the same church I went to the last time you saw me, and for 44 years before that.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my church.
Uh-huh.
I own that church.
Yeah.
Everything that happens in that church, I invested in.
Yeah.
Right.
I raised my kids in that church.
Yeah.
I have given my life to that church. I've been on the board of that church for over 30 years. Why would I want to go somewhere else?
Yeah.
And they don't have a good answer for that.
I mean, have you ever had a time where you were in conflict or at odds, and you're like, it would have been comfortable for you to leave and go somewhere else?
Are you kidding me?
And like, what made you? So, because people are in that position right now, maybe.
We had a couple that went to our church, really great couple, and they really love Sherry and I. And we're not, it doesn't matter. We're really hands-on with our family and everything, and we never ask people to come in and help us with our kids.
Right.
Like lots of times when you travel and you have ministry, you do that. We figured it out.
Yeah.
But like I traveled one time for 12 years with almost totally without Sherry so that our home could have stability. But anyhow,
Wow.
That's, what a sacrifice.
so this couple, I'm at church 5 to 8 Sundays a year. And so I know what's going on there because I'm on the elders board and I have friends and the pastor is my friend, whatever.
Yeah.
But I noticed when I went, this couple wasn't there. And the next time I went back, they weren't there. And they always sat in the row right behind me. So I asked somebody, hey, where are they at? They left the church. I said, what do you mean they left the church? Well, they just don't come here anymore. And I said, why? And they said, nobody knows. I said, this couple been part of our
Nobody
church for
knows.
20 years
Yeah.
and nobody knows. There's a
Nobody
problem there.
knows.
So, that week they lived about 45 minutes from me. So I drove out near their house, parked about a block or two away from their house, called them and said, hey, what are you guys doing? And they said, oh man, we're just sitting out under the deck on our patio, drinking coffee, listening to the little fountain bubbling in the pool and stuff. I said, man, that sounds so relaxing. They said, it is. You should come and sit out here and drink coffee with us sometime. I said, are you guys really inviting me to come and have coffee? Anytime, Pastor Jack, anytime. Just come. I said, good. Go open the front door. I'm standing there.
I love that.
Wait, no.
Right now?
Yeah. So they said, right now? I said, yeah. So I pulled up in front of the house, got out, walked out, went out there, I was sitting drinking coffee with them, just chatting. I love the people. I still love them. And this is a heartbreaking story. Every word of it's totally true. So I said, so I heard you guys left the church. Yeah. Well, why? Well, the pastor made a mistake. I said, our pastor made a mistake?
Well, no,
They said,
benefit of the doubt right away. There's like, not my pastor, not our pastor.
yeah. He made a mistake. He did something that was just wrong. I said, what was it? So they told me. I said, yep, he made a mistake. And they said, did you know about it? And I said, I'm an elder in the church. I'm the pastor's best friend. Of course I knew about that mistake. And they said, what'd you do about it? And I said, nothing yet. And they said, are you going to leave the church? I said, if I left the church every time the pastor made a mistake, we'd have never got past the first month in 1980.
Yeah.
So I said, you guys have made a mistake. And they said, well, what are you going to do about this mistake the pastor made? I said, the day will come when he and I are together and he will open the door for me to discuss that with him, which that day did come, Alex. And when I did, I told him about the mistake he made. He just dropped his head and said, I know. I know. I thought it was going to be okay, that I made an okay decision. But when it was happening, I realized I just made a mistake and I allowed the wrong people on the platform. And I said, cool, I hope we don't have that problem again. He said, we'll never have that problem again.
Yeah.
And so that was it, okay? So I said to this couple, why don't you just come back to the church? That's your home. Where are you going to church at? Oh, we go to Keith Moore's in Branson. I said, let's see, Branson, 220 miles from here. That's a long drive every Sunday. Well, we don't go every Sunday.
Of
I
course.
said, well, how many Sundays do you go? Well, we're trying to go twice a year. I said, so you go to a church in Branson, Missouri, a tourist mecca, twice a year, and that's your church. Yeah. Okay, if that's
You're
your
like, I'm
church.
traveling the world and I go 5 times a year. So like
I said, so if that's your church, do you send your tithe there?
crickets.
We send offerings sometimes. I said, so when one of you die, is Keith Moore going to come to St. Louis and do your funeral? Does he know your name? No, I don't think so. I said, you guys need to come back to life.
Yeah.
I said, the next time I'm in town, I'll call you. You come to church with me. They did. They came to church. They sat right behind me in third row. And look, you couldn't get to the front of the church. So many people were up there talking to them before the service.
Wow.
Then when the service was
Happy
over,
to see him. Happy to have him back.
everybody was happy to see him. When the service was over, for 20 minutes, I stood there and watched people crying, hugging them, welcoming them back, whatever. So after the thing, it kind of died down a little bit. I said, so what do you guys think? And they said, this is our home. We're back. This is where we're going to church. I said, this is it. This is your decision. Life Christian Center is your church, and you're coming back. Yep, we're back. I said, okay. They never came back.
Man.
Never came back. And so within the last 2, at the most 3 years, the man called me one day. He was crying. He said, Jack, I said, I already know. And he said, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. My wife died. I don't have a church. I don't know who to ask to do her funeral. I don't have a church to have the funeral in. I don't know what to do, Jack. We messed it up. We messed it up. And so I said, well, I have a buddy that has a church just a few blocks from your house. I'll ask him if we can use the church or a chapel or something. I'll come and do the funeral. We'll have a funeral for her. He was just crying like a baby. You know what he did? He got offended over something he shouldn't have been offended by. He left the church. He left his church family, the people that loved him and cared for him. And now today, he's just an elderly widow guy sitting at home.
Oh.
Is that a heartbreaker or what?
It's sad because it's probably a reality for so many people I've met in my own short 31 years of life. So I can't even imagine just the amount of stories where people are offended and people are mad and sometimes you get to see it through Facebook, but most times people just hide it in their heart and their soul. And it's just sad because, especially a church like here, when, I've been coming here since 2011 and I left and came back, and it's like, where are those people?
I know.
I love that
it's
couple.
Crazy. That night I went to their house and sat by the pool and drank coffee with them. I think you call it a lanai down here. And we were sitting there. I said, so you guys, the pastor made a mistake, did something that should have been done different. Probably nobody else in the church even thought about it or realized it. Yeah. And you left the church. You're going to leave the church over one mistake and one problem? Mm-hmm. And that lady's a preacher's daughter. And she said, no, we're not. Yeah. You know why? And I said, why? She said, because if you leave a church and you're hurt and wounded, and because there was a problem, then you take the hurt and the wound and the problem with you, and it doesn't affect the church at all, but it affects you the rest of your life.
Man.
Yeah, it's true. It affected her the rest of her life.
And she knew that, but still couldn't make the change.
I'm like almost pretty sure it's like, if a Coke exploded on you, you probably would open up another one and drink it.
That's a good analogy.
But we don't do that. It's just so crazy.
Right. Yeah, people just write off the whole thing.
Yeah.
Completely. And I mean, the last episode that we just did earlier last week, it was about toxic people.
And toxic culture.
And we talked about toxicity and how, people who are toxic, they tend to, they're the victim all the time. Yeah. Like everybody is harming them and hurting them. And we had said, like, most of the time,
right, people
don't even know that they've done anything to hurt you because they never meant to. There's like this imaginary scenario that they've made up where they've created this offense.
Right.
And it sounds like that's kind of what you were seeing play out in real time, and it amounted to...
Well, that's like almost the worst case scenario where she dies, you don't have a place to have her funeral or what. Yeah. My friends had a church near them, and I called and say, hey, pastor, tell them part of the story. He said, Jack, you can use our auditorium anytime you want. Of course, you can have the funeral here. That church was full.
Yeah. Wow.
People came because they love those people.
And I'm sure from life.
And they were all from life. They were almost all from life, family and from life.
Man.
And fortunately for me, that church is 45 minutes from my house, and they've been part of our ministry for decades. But I think 3 times now I've used their church to do a funeral for somebody that didn't have a church.
Man,
and
sounds like a good friend, that guy at that church.
Yeah, he's a really great guy.
It's another symptom of that lack of commitment. It's like, well, I don't have to be here because they did this to me. And so it's like another symptom of that same problem.
Yeah.
So look, the church is the most amazing organization in the world. Mm. It's the largest organization in the world. It's in almost every nation. There are a few nations still that don't have a church, but it's in almost every nation. It's in almost every language. It's universal in so many ways, but we don't realize how powerful the church is. When Jesus said something, the way I see it is like if you ever see any kind of a diagram or a picture or something somebody's made of the way when you speak a word, it reverberates out and goes.
Yeah.
When Jesus spoke something, it reverberated out around the world, and it's still reverberating today. And when Jesus said, I will build my church.
Yes.
No matter what Satan does, he can't stop that.
No.
He can never stop that. There will always be a church. There will always be great churches, healthy churches, helping churches, loving churches, and you can't stop that because Jesus said, I'll build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it.
Yes.
So I like to know really what the gates of hell are. I've done a little bit of research on it, and supposedly there was a place that they called the gates of hell that was a stronghold for something.
Okay.
But I can tell you this, I've planted churches in Muslim areas and hundreds of churches in Hindu areas, and I've been kicked out of countries, and I've had my life threatened, gone to cultures before where, I was doing a crusade in North India, which I'm going back there in February, and a guy stood up and pointed a rifle at me and started screaming, I'm going to kill this man, I'm going to kill this man. And one of my workers went over and said, you can't kill that guy. And he goes, no, I'm going to shoot him. I'm going to kill him. You can't kill that guy. And, well, I'm going to shoot him. So if you shoot him, the bullet's going to miss. Well, I'll shoot again. Well, if you shoot him and the bullet hits him, he'll live anyway. And the guy said, I'm going to shoot him. I'm still up there preaching this whole time. This guy was way out. There's a big, huge crowd of tens of thousands. And he said, I'm going to shoot him anyway. And my friend said, well, if you shoot him and he dies, I'm going to go raise him from the dead, so it won't matter anyway. And the guy said, okay, I won't shoot him, and sat down. So I forgot to, usually in meetings, preachers get together, but all the crew, we would all go someplace. Like, this is a town where one night I was sitting in a thatched roof, bamboo pole coffee shop or tea shop drinking tea, and I was counting the rats running around the rafters up there. So don't think we were sitting in some 5-star hotel. Yeah. We're sitting around talking. I said, hey, Jebby Kumar, I just remembered a couple nights ago while I was preaching, there was some commotion, some problem going out way out there. What was it? Some guy had a gun. He was going to shoot you. So he told me that story, and I said, the guy said over and over he's going to shoot me, and Jebby Kumar said, yeah. I said, you told him you'd raise me from the dead? He said, yeah, I've done it before. I said, I know, I trust you. Wow. I said, why didn't you tell me? He said, well, because tonight was the last night of the crusade, and I thought if we told you that night, you might not come back for the rest of the crusade.
Hey, smart guy. He is smart.
For the greater good.
Yeah.
Smart guy. Well,
Jack, real quick, I was thinking, this is not a question I had, but you've planted and started so many churches.
Yeah.
So you've seen the start. In your opinion, over the last 40, 50 years, I think I have an answer, but who is really doing a great job of looking like the church in Acts? These churches that you're planting in these remote areas that all they have is each other, they have to lean on each other? Or is there some churches in America that you're like, man, if they could just send those people to the international, we could really do this thing?
Oh, you know what, PJ? I know lots of great leaders. That was a conversation we had a little bit at lunch yesterday.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know lots of famous preachers, worldwide, world-renowned or something like that. But the greatest preachers don't live in the United States. They live in other nations. They don't get the publicity. They don't get the applause from everybody.
They don't have the Instagram followers.
But guys that are just killing it in other countries. Like the first guy that comes to my mind now, his name's Benson Idahosa. He passed away now. Yeah. But I remember back in the 80s when he had 50,000 people in Nigeria.
Wow.
And a guy named D. Mohan, he pastors New Life Assembly of God in Chennai, India. And many years ago when he had about 500 people and he was the largest church there was in India, I would go to his house all the time, and we both liked to play ping pong. And he lived in a simple place. It had a flat roof, and on the top of it, he had a ping pong table. And we'd go up there and play ping pong for hours. It's a great one. Yeah, we play ping pong for hours. And that guy grew. One time I had a pastor's meeting in his church. He let me use his facilities, and I had 10,800 pastors at the meeting.
Wow.
And this guy is just all that, but nobody knew that.
Yeah.
American Assembly of God Missionary saw this guy and realized potential in him.
Yeah.
And Pastor Mohan is just the greatest, humblest leader. And now he has the largest church of India. And up until last year, he was a worldwide leader of the Assemblies of God.
Wow.
And he's just this guy, nobody hardly knew who he was. But the Assemblies of God saw that in him. And look, Pastor Tran Mai in Vietnam, in the 90s, he had 25,000 people meeting in houses all over Vietnam, underground churches where people would slip in one by one and try not to bring any notice to the neighborhood. Yeah. If you went to a house church service, they would sing like this. And they would clap like this because they couldn't make noise. Wow. He'd been arrested many times. He went to prison. I was with him one time. He said, they're following me really close right now. I'm probably getting ready to go to prison. I said, so Pastor Mai, if you go to prison, what do you want me to do? And he said, will you just make sure that my wife and my 2 daughters have food? He said, I'll be okay. And he went to prison. And after he was out of prison, several years later, I was there doing a meeting in a remote area in Vietnam, staying in a hotel, had a friend with me. We're the only Caucasians anywhere from miles and miles. So I think everybody knew we were there. Yeah. But they would come and pick us up at night on 2 little 90cc Honda motorcycles, and I'd get on behind this little Vietnamese guy, and we'd drive out, and we would go out into the sand dunes by the ocean and have meetings out in the sand dunes so nobody could see what we're doing or something. Yeah. So this guy picked me up one night, and we're riding down this road going to the ocean, and he says to me, do you know Pastor Tran Mai? I said, I do know. Because this guy had no idea who I was.
Yeah.
I said, I
But
do
he
know
knew you guys
Pastor.
were speaking the same message.
Yeah. I said, I do know Pastor Mai. He goes, he's my pastor.
Nice.
I said, that's great. A few minutes later, he goes, we went to prison at the same time.
Wow.
I said, really? He said, yeah. My pastor got out earlier than me. I was so happy for him. What a testimony that is to this great leader, Tran Mai.
Man.
He had 25,000 people. I could tell you stories about him for hours. But one of the coolest things he ever did was there was another church. Pastor Mai was from South India, from Saigon. And this other guy was from up in Hanoi in the north. And he also had like 5,000 or 10,000 people meeting in house churches. So they had a meeting, and Pastor Mai said, look, I have all these house churches meeting in North Vietnam that we can't lead and train properly. Will you take them?
Wow.
And he just turned over 15,000 people to another pastor. Just like that.
Like, that's how it should be.
Yeah.
That is how it should be.
Yeah,
and guess what? His church went right back up to 25.
Yeah.
Yeah, his church went right back up to 25,000 people. I've been in his house where he built a false ceiling in part of his house, and the ceiling was 3 feet high, and he had a little cart he had made with caster wheels on it, and that fake ceiling was his office and study area, and it just had rows of books in it.
Wow.
And he would scoot up and down through there on that little cart, getting books and doing stuff.
Man.
And it had a secret entrance to it where when the police came and raided, they couldn't find him.
What's the temperature there now? Like, is it more acceptable?
It's a little bit more relaxed. They've given the Catholic Church a lot of freedom.
Yeah.
But they've also given a lot of freedom to the Seventh-day Adventists, which here in the U.S., we Christians kind of have a negative attitude. But look, they're true born-again people just like we are.
I think people get them confused with like Mormons
Yeah,
and stuff.
they do.
But
they're people of God, and they're real big on medical missions. They have hospitals all over the place.
Yeah.
And so in Vietnam, the Protestant church by the government, they basically refer to it as being that church name. But it's the Nazarenes, the Baptists, the Lutherans, and it's changed a lot. I was supposed to go back the week COVID hit, and I was actually in Indonesia, and I was going to go to India for a few days, come back to Singapore, then go to Vietnam, and COVID quit. And thank God we managed to get back to the States before they shut everything down.
Seriously.
It's crazy because hearing all these stories, we not even scratched the surface of all the stuff that you've seen in your time in missions. I mean, you haven't even talked about your ministry with biker gangs and the 1%, where at any moment your life is tangling in the balance of some guy who's like thumbs up or thumbs down, right? And you have moments where, I mean, recently, I remember getting a call like, Jack Harris was overseas and he got beat up and he's in the hospital. Like what?
That was 10 Muslims that didn't like Christians.
I mean, as I've said, we've only scratched the surface. There's so many different stories.
No, we'd be here for 3 months.
Please, every time you're in Florida, let's do another episode if you're down. And you need to start your own podcast, by the way, that you've been talking about it. But I think
maybe I can watch yours to get some inspiration.
Yeah, let's do it. Your life is a perfect example of like, God's got my back. I'm going to do this thing. There's no question about it. I'm going to do it.
He lives out, if God can be for you.
Yeah, if God's for me, then who can be against me? I mean, that guy was doing it by saying, go ahead, shoot him. I'll bring him back to life.
That's one of the most gangster things I've ever heard.
I'm going to be with that guy in February.
That guy's awesome.
That's cool. Like, is that something that you think God just put in you, or did you learn that over time? Like, you took a step of faith, and then that gave you confidence, and you just do that for 45 years, and now you're like, hey, let's go.
Once you get confidence, then you can do a lot more.
Yeah.
It's inexperience stops a lot of people, you know, and the only way you can get experience is just go do something.
Yeah. And
so, like, over the last, since 85, lots of young guys have come to me and say, I want to be a missionary just like you. And I'm like, just like me? They go, I want to be a missionary just like you. I said, okay, here's my advice.
Let me get 10 of my buddies real quick. We're going to beat you up. Let's see if you want to still be a missionary.
That works.
Oh, man.
Go to Bible school for 2 years.
Yeah.
Then just pack your family up, buy a one-way ticket to India, and go to India and see what happens, and you can be just like me.
Yeah, because that's what you did.
That's what I did. When I realized I thought we'd go to Germany.
Yeah.
My best friend, Rick Shelton, who's a great pastor and leader, we've been friends since we were 14.
Yeah.
He said, Jack, you need to go to Bible college. You need to learn some more, but you need to meet the right people. If you go to the right Bible college, you can meet the right people.
Yeah. Sounds like what you were saying at the beginning of this conversation.
Yeah. And so I went to Bible college, met the right people. But, I was going to Germany, going to be a missionary. Well, some guy came in and messed that all up because he was a missionary in the Philippines. So I said, okay, Sherry, Germany's had the gospel for years. Good night. They had Martin Luther. Let's go to the Philippines.
Right.
So then I was going to the Philippines. Then a guy came from Zimbabwe, and he talked about the great needs in Zimbabwe. I said, we've had American missionaries in the Philippines for at least 20 or 30 years. Let's go to Zimbabwe. And so I was going to go to Zimbabwe. And, throughout the course of the 2 years, so many missionaries came and spoke as guest speakers. I was going anywhere in the world, and this is not an original quote with me, but I love this quote that the world is my parish.
Yeah.
And I just go where I feel like God wants me to go. And if I do what he tells me to do, he'll figure it all out.
I love that.
Yeah. And so it's not that I'm without fear, but I'm not afraid of very much. Since I've been here with you guys this morning, I got a text from a guy who was not arguably, the meanest hell's angel that ever lived.
Wow.
Killed lots of people. And he's my good dear friend. If I called him right now or text him and say, I am in Melbourne, Australia. Melbourne.
Either way, you show up.
Yeah, either way.
By the way, when I got here Tuesday, they didn't have a rental car for me.
Yeah.
It's because I made the reservation in Melbourne, Australia.
Some guy.
But anyhow, if I see him a message right now, all I have to do is say, come to Melbourne. He'll be here tomorrow.
He'll be here.
Yeah.
Man.
And when you have friends like that and you have churches like this church, pastors like Pastor Ken that love us and believe in us and will help us. And I always know he's like having a gun in my back pocket. I can always pull him out if I need him. And so that's how we do it. And, like planting churches, the way I plant churches is much different the way we do it in the States. But, I go someplace and hold a meeting. If we have a good response, we plant a church there. We put a pastor there. We get a piece of land. We put the best structure on it we can put, and that's a church.
Yeah.
And I've done that over 200 times.
Wow.
So now Lester Summerall was a great missionary. He was a missionary to the Philippines back in maybe the 50s and 60s. And he told me one time, he said, Jack, you're doing all these amazing crusades around the world, and you're just preaching to millions of people. But I'm going to give you a suggestion. And I said, what? He said, when you have a great crusade, plant a church from it. Because if you don't plant the churches, when you get to be an old guy like me, you're going to have pictures to show and stories to tell.
Yeah.
But if you'll plant churches, you'll have a string of churches around the world that'll continue preaching way past where you are, and you'll still have the stories and the pictures.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it really affected me when Brother Summerall told me that.
Yeah.
And
so did you shift and you're like, hey, we got to, anytime
I did it right
there's
then.
a group of people, we're playing it.
I was doing crusades. I at one point I had a system where I'd be doing 3 crusades at one time in India.
Wow.
I would start one on Friday and preach there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, then have somebody that worked with me continue it the rest of the week.
Yeah.
On Sunday, I would start another one.
Yeah.
And on Thursday, I would start another one.
Wow.
And we were just rolling through
them in.
villages.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
We've been talking for over an hour already.
Oh my gosh.
Jack. And I want to respect your time. But I would love for you to just, before you go, tell us about Global Messenger Service and what you guys are doing right now. Because
all right. I love that. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, for sure.
So Global Messenger Service is a missions organization my wife and I started in 1985. We incorporated in 1987. We have raised and trained way more than 100 missionaries.
Wow.
And we have missionaries right now in Africa, Central America, South America, and Asia that we've raised up. And we originally were an evangelistic organization, and we held open-air crusades. I've held a couple hundred in nations around the world. The biggest crowd I've ever preached to is 300,000 to 500,000 people. It's hard to count that many people. But I have had many crusades that grew to 90 and 100,000 people. And then I started seeing the need of planting churches from those crusades. And then I think in like 91, the need was so great of throwaway babies in India. And I started my first children's home. It was a girls' home. And then a year or two later, I started a boys' home. And we did not adopt kids out. We wanted them to be a family. You know, I know, and you know, if we were to take a child from India and get a family in Melbourne to adopt them, it would be the most amazing thing.
Sure.
But when you live in a home where that happens, it's very insecure.
Yeah.
Because those children, little children, can't realize what it's going to be like. And I have this deep passion that people need to stay in their country and reach their country.
Yeah.
I don't blame anybody for wanting to come to the U.S. Say, look, this is the best there is.
Sure.
But, you know, like I really have a hard time with Indian leaders, African leaders, whatever, who come to the States and live here and enjoy the prosperity of America and don't reach their nation with the gospel.
Especially when they know what's back there.
Yeah. They know. They just don't do it. And so we have kids that are pharmacists and nurses and presidents of companies and financial advisors.
Wow.
We had a little get together last September with about 40 something kids and their families that have come out of our children's homes.
That's cool.
And I was sitting at a table with 3 girls. One of them, her name is Gracia. And I knew that she was a nurse and that she had actually lived in Malaysia for a few years and worked there. And I asked these other 2 girls, so what do you do? And this one girl said, oh, I'm a financial advisor.
Whoa.
I said, for who? And she named some huge American financial organization.
Wow.
I said, are you kidding me? She said, no, you sent me to college for that. So we raised all those kids and we sent them to university and got them educations. And it's phenomenal now to see them. And then, you know, we started doing humanitarian aid projects almost by accident. In other words, I didn't say, let's become a humanitarian aid. Yeah. But, you know, like, we were already doing a lot by the time it happened. But in 2004, I think it was, when the tsunami hit Asia, well, I'd been ministering in Indonesia for a few years, and the hardest hit place was in a place called Banda Aceh, Indonesia, and there were 164,000 people killed in 2 minutes. And so I raised a lot of money. Initially, I raised $250,000 cash and went there and started helping people. And I went back many times, and I still go there. I go there twice a year now and speak at a church that's grown to 25,000 people. Wow. And they call me pastor there and let me have a voice to the church. But I just started doing humanitarian aid projects and providing school supplies to children. And India has the largest leper population in the world. Wow. And so we have daily feeding programs in 2 leper colonies. And we do a lot of stuff in Central America, let's just say Costa Rica, and in Cuba, and in Mexico. And we just reach as many people as we can and basically have a blast doing it. Yeah. Wouldn't want to do anything else. I'm 71 years old. Yeah. And my wife just I had a conversation this week about how many years we're going to keep doing this. And we're like, forever. Until who don't want to do what I'm doing? Yeah. Man. Which really, that sounds great, but most people don't want to do what I'm doing.
True. Dude, it's so cool because, you know, I don't want to take too much of your time, but you've answered. I had a question yesterday at lunch, and I was like, hey, I got a question. I didn't get to answer it. Ask it. And then I told Alex, man, if I had one question to ask him. But you've answered it because my question was, have you ensured that someone's going to care about this as much as you have? Like, that's been my question. But you're telling me all these people that you have, like, that is those people. Right. They are going to do that. But it's so cool because
that's my legacy.
We're sitting with someone who deserves probably 10 Nobel Peace Prizes. You know, Alfred Nobel.
Man, I like you, PJ. You think big.
I'm a jerk. So this is honest. This is true. This is genuine. But it's just so true because Alfred Nobel, I'm sure you know the story, but you've literally let
been
God
to the hospital,
do everything for you. And now you've turned what maybe some tattoos and some stories could have meant and all this stuff. And now look at what you've done. And it's like, you're going to get something way better than a Nobel Peace. You're going to get the good job, my...
Good and faithful.
Yeah, you're going to get that. But, man, if there's something that we could do to honor what you could do into what we're doing, what would be that thing?
Well, I think we should invest our lives in something that changes people. Yeah. And we most of the stuff we invest our lives in is to change us. But look, God's a big God, and he's the same God all over the world. And God will really do big things for people that are willing to run to him and do what he wants them to do.
Yes.
And that might mean moving to another country. It might mean changing your vocation here in the USA. I don't know exactly what it would mean. But like my legacy, PJ, is people. So there's nothing wrong with what I'm getting ready to say. But for most ministers, their legacy is a building with a name on it. And, like here in the States, it's really sad. I have pastors that have 50, 100, 200, 500 people or something, and they think their ministry is so much bigger than mine. And they can't even comprehend the things that not that we've done, but that we're doing today.
Yeah.
And my legacy is all the people that I've raised up. I started a pastors fellowship in India that grew to 6,000 pastors.
Yeah.
I've mentored missionaries that serve around the world. I've built church buildings, drilled wells in villages in India with no water. I have at least 1 million people drinking water out of my wells every day. And that's my investment, and that's going to be my legacy.
Yeah.
And that's going to be what people remember about me.
Yeah.
And so Tran Mai in Vietnam, I wrote him in the last couple of weeks, which I haven't written him for a while. And said, Pastor Mai, I just want to let you know I love you. And I want to come back to Vietnam sometime. And he's brought me back, Pastor Jack, Vietnam will always be your country. I got a message yesterday from a pastor named Henry Guadamas in Upala, Costa Rica. Pastor Jack, can you please put us on your schedule for 2026 and come back again?
Wow.
That's my legacy.
Yeah.
And so actually the truth is I never put my name on anything in any church that I built anywhere or anything till about 2013. We started building these churches in India where we built a church, a parsonage for the pastor to live in, and drill a well. And on the foundation stone, it says dedicated by Jack and Sherry Harris.
That's cool.
And that's the only time our names are not on we have a boys' home and a girls' home. No, that's not true. I forgot. A couple years ago, we built a new dormitory for the boys, and the boys decided that dormitory should be called Jack's Place.
That's cool.
So I was really honored by that.
But even that wasn't you stamping a building. You invested in them, and they decided to honor you.
That's right.
So investing in people is way better time, a way better way to spend your time and energy. Which, how did we miss that? That's what ministry is supposed to be.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
get
supposed to be people.
Yeah.
We're not in competition with anybody.
No.
And I want to imitate anything I can that'll help me be better. You know, but I'm not just going to be a rubber stamp ministry that do what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
And you just find out that this is really one of my primary messages in life, and that is find out what God wants you to do, and then do it at a very high level.
Yeah.
And people say, "Well, I don't know how to know the will of God." Well, I want to tell you the secret to knowing the will of God now, PJ.
Hold on, this is
if you want to know the secret to knowing the will of God, just ask. He will tell you.
I love it.
Yeah, just ask. Well, I asked and I didn't hear. You didn't listen well enough. You didn't listen long enough.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just ask. Every January, I go away for 3 to 5 days and pray. And a lot of that is just me praying about, God, did I fulfill your will for me last year?
Yeah.
And what's your will for me this year? Do I need to change anything?
Yeah.
You know what happens? Almost nothing. I
So
still do.
You got to keep going.
I've been coming here for like 10 or 12 years.
Yeah.
I'm still doing the same things now that I was 10 or 12 years ago.
Consistent.
The people that worked with me and lived in India and Malaysia and worked with me in the 80s and the 90s, they all say you're still doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. When God told me to go, I just go. I don't need any other directions.
I love it.
Man, I love it.
So awesome. Jack, thank you so much.
What an honor to be on the program with you guys.
Yeah, of course.
I love your enthusiasm, and look, you guys are connected to something great here. And what God is doing here, and really through the Height family, is phenomenal and very, very rare.
Yeah.
Someday people will write books about how Pastor Ken, Pastor Chris, and Pastor Jason have all followed their grandfather's steps and become great men of God.
Yeah.
And you're connected to that. And so no matter what happens through Discover Life Church in Melbourne, Florida, you guys are part of that.
That's cool.
And so you're building a legacy.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for spending the time to be here.
You're welcome.
And I think you're right. And the fact that somebody as great as you is somebody that they're listening to is proof that hey, they're not just paving their own way.
No.
Right.
Pastor Ken has surrounded himself and Pastor Jason and Pastor Chris, and we're trying to do it too.
Yeah.
Surrounded themselves with people who know more than them, have more experience than them, and have the kind of relationship where they can be like, hey, dude, you missed the mark on that and you need to fix that. And a lot of pastors don't have that, but our pastors do. Yeah. So I'm like all in because I know there's accountability in place. They have the vision, and they also have allowed themselves to be surrounded by people who know better than them and who are willing to correct them when needed and guide them when needed. So and
you just
that's
hit
what
on a
we're
big
doing.
one there. They're willing to take correction.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great leaders take correction.
That's good. That's good. All right, cool. PJ, is there anything else you wanted to say?
Man, there's so much, but no, I've been encouraged.
Yeah.
So if it was for not any 8,000 of you, it was for me.
Yeah. Jack, is there anything you wanted to say?
Well, thanks for having me do this. You know, I've built a podcast studio, as I've already told you. And I have everything set up and ready to go. I just haven't started the first production of it
yet. We can be your first or your 36th.
Yeah.
Because this is episode 36.
Yeah, for us, it's 36.
It may be number 1 for me.
I would love it.
I may steal it from you.
I would love it.
You can do it.
If you get a guy from India named Jay reaching out to you, know what's going on.
Awesome.
Will do.
Actually, I have people that have grown up on my children's homes that are going to help me produce and do it.
That's cool.
Which is very cool.
That is so
the
cool.
technology blows me away that with the same cameras you have there and the same brand switcher, they can control all of that through the internet.
Yeah.
Remotely.
From India.
That's kind of crazy.
It's crazy, man. So thanks for having me, guys. And look, you said a lot of nice things about me, and most of those things are really true. but if you talk to the people that really know me, they might tell you a few mistakes I made along the way.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I talk about my mistakes all the time.
Yeah.
One great way we can learn from other people is by hearing their mistakes.
Definitely.
Awesome. I could go on all day. So
I'm sure.
Thanks a lot.
But we appreciate you, Jack.
Of course.
Can't wait for next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll say one final thing to everybody that watched these podcasts and to you guys. Eat the meat, spit out the bones, and live a great life for God.
Yes, that's good. That's good.
That's great.
Thank you guys for watching this week. We'll see you next week. Hope you all have a great week, and God bless.
Peace out.
Hallelujah. Got to high five me, Jack.
Love you guys.